I feel like I unlocked certain parts of my older self early without fully completing the steps of my 21-year-old self.
So what are you saying? You're old before your time?
I'm saying that there is a gap between my chronological, mental, and subjective age.
I see. So if I say, you're so wise, or you look great for your age, are they compliments or insults?
Well, anything you tell me is an insult, so does it really matter?
This isn't a podcast with all the answers.
It's a conversation about figuring things out as you go.
From two very different generations.
With Michelle R. Williams
and Nick Hirst.
Welcome to Life Happens.
Well, I don't think I always insult you. For example, I really want to say, that's a nice top you're wearing today, Michelle.
Of course, that's the only time you don't insult me, when I'm wearing something that was actually a Christmas present from you.
Oh, was it? Oh, was that? I didn't realise.
Oh my gosh, you are being so fake and dramatic. But yes, Nick, look at it. I want to show it off because unfortunately it's not really visible on the video, on the camera, because the sentence is too low, but I want to show it off.
There it is.
If you can't properly see it, it says, "Who the fuck am I?" without the fuck being spelled out, because obviously who is Nick to swear in public? So
Absolutely.
And honestly, I feel so bad that it took me that long to wear it for one of our recordings. But I have a really good excuse, and I need you to hear me out, because I'm sure that you are offended that it took me that long. Because, backstory, it was a Christmas present, and it's sort of like a podcast merch, which we were joking about before, because we are ones to buy curtains and joke about things that are not really relevant. So on the back of it, I'm not sure, I kind of want to show it off. I'm not sure I will be able to do that, but on the back of it, what does it say on the back of it? I don't usually look at my bag, so I don't really remember. It says Life Happens podcast. Yeah, right? I want to show it off. I'm not sure I will be able to do that, especially with headphones and my hair and everything, but bear with me.
Give it a try. Life happens, but you can too. Yeah. Is there something else underneath that as well? Under the you can too podcast. Yeah, it just says podcast.
So that was my Christmas present. I love it. Obviously, the blue color. It actually matches my nails today. So you can kind of guess who came up with the color in our logo, hard guess. And this morning, when I was like, okay, what will I wear? And it's so cold here. It snowed again. And I was like, I really need just something comfortable. I was like, okay, I will wear a hoodie. And then I was like, oh, I have a podcast hoodie that I have for 2 months now. And I didn't have it on any episode yet. So here we are. And I also thought that for this episode today, the sentence on it, the question on it was just perfect. Because after doing research for this episode, I have no idea who the fuck am I. Because it just messed with my brain so much that I lost half of my identity. So here we are. Perfect. I'm just really sad that it's not visible on it like all the time. So you just have to imagine it.
By the way, you said earlier, you used the expression buying curtains, and not everyone may understand that because it's something that I made up. I think we did explain this once before, but let's just clear it up again. This expression, I made up an expression called "don't pick out the curtains yet," which basically is don't get ahead of yourself. Like when you view a house that you are thinking about buying and you're just walking around it, and you, in your mind, you're already picking out the curtains. And let's face it, when you move into a new home, there's quite a few things to sort out before you pick out the curtains. So that's where that came from. And Michelle used that, saying that she's buying curtains. Anyway, how am I hear you ask?
Yes, of course, because now it was time for my boring story, so now it's time for your boring story.
First of all, none of my stories are boring.
Okay.
And second of all, it's not a story. I'm fine, except I've been suffering with a bit of a bad back for the last week, but it seems to be getting better. It's a perennial problem for me. having a bad back goes back. See what I did there? Didn't even mean it. Goes back to my 20s. And it's just a problem. I'm tall. You can't tell because I'm sitting down now, but I'm tall. 6'4"
As
in
hell.
English.
Yeah.
100 centimeters, I think, in whatever metric system, but it doesn't really mean much to me because I'm English. Yeah, but it's getting better. So
Yeah.
I'm back.
But to be fair, I just think you are just saying excuses because, man, I think that you are just getting old. That happens. That's fine. It happens. And I know you hate it, and I know you don't feel like it, but that's actually what we are talking about today. So maybe you will lose part of your identity today when I explain you what's wrong with you once again, because that's a huge hobby of mine.
Yes, it seems to be one of our recurring themes. I don't hate it. You say I hate it getting old. I think because I'm such a believer in you live every day of your life as being the best day of your life. Because if you hanker for something like your past, spend your time wishing, oh, I wish I could be 28 again, then it's so pointless because you can't. Well, you can because you haven't been 28 yet. But you talk about age and stuff. I just want to say that I did this online test, which you sent me. So I did it, and it's all about what's called your subjective age. And
Which we will get into.
We will get into and explain it later. But just to sort of give a little trailer, a little hint of what's to come. My subjective age is 27. I'll go with that. It works for me.
That's just ridiculous, especially considering the fact that my subjective age is 30.
Oh.
So, shut up and respect your elders.
I will.
And I will be using that. I will be using that so often now, because at first I felt really bad. I was like, what do you mean you feel younger than me? But then I was like, that's actually, first of all, it's very accurate. And second of all, respect your elders.
I will. Can I get you anything? Do you need a blanket for your knees? Or maybe I could get you a wheelchair?
Thank you.
You probably would think so. And actually, I don't mean to generalize and portray all people of a certain age as needing a wheelchair and a blanket on their knees.
Also, I just said I'm
Just
30, not 110, okay? Okay, why did we get to the point when we are making fun of me being old? Look at us. How did we get to that point? Because I'm a respectful person and I don't make fun of your age. But that doesn't go for today. So brace yourself.
I'm braced. Why? What's going to happen?
What's going to happen is that we will talk about why do you feel younger than you actually are, or why you get that compliment in quotes, because I don't think it's a compliment, that you are so mature and wise for your age, which is what I get, and I hate it. And we will talk about that. But before we get into that, because doing this research, there were things that I didn't even know, which now I kind of want to explain so we are certain what we are talking about and it doesn't get confusing. Because I thought that I was always using the term mental age, but actually mental age is not really what we are talking about. We are talking about something called subjective age, and there is a great difference in it. So that's what I want to start with, and I want to explain it a bit first. So the term mental age was originally used in psychological testing to measure a child's IQ and intellectual development. So basically, when a 10-year-old had the IQ of an average 12-year-old, it was said that the kid's mental age is 12. That's basically how it started. But today it's more often used to describe emotional maturity, life perspective, and psychological resilience. And it's used to describe these things in adults. So basically, if I explain it in very simple terms, chronological age, that's simple. That's simply how old you are. And mental age is basically how old your brain is, but not in the way of how old the organ is, but on what level you think. It reflects how your brain and emotions and life experiences influence your emotional responses, problem-solving skills, ability to handle stress, and so on and so on. And then subjective age is how old you feel. It's purely personal. It doesn't have any physical or psychological background. I mean, it can be affected by it, obviously, but it's purely how you feel, which is what we will be talking about. But because it is also logically connected to mental age in general, I just want to point out some signs that you might not be mentally as old as you are physically. So obviously your mental age can be higher or lower. And some signs of higher mental age are that you are, for example, emotionally very self-aware and reflective. You set healthy boundaries in relationships with others and yourself. You manage stress with certain calmness and clarity, or you just know how to manage stress. People often seek your advice in real life and tell you that you are really mature for your age, which is something I already mentioned. And some signs of lower mental age can be that you often feel overwhelmed by adult responsibilities, especially when you become an adult and when you are in that moment that I am now in, going sort of from this structure of your teens and high school years to the what I call the adult life. Another sign of lower mental age can be that you struggle to regulate your emotions, or that grown people have childlike tantrums, which I think that we can see quite often, and it's just sad, but it happens, and I think everyone can imagine it. Not maybe them having it, but definitely people around them. You try to avoid difficult conversations or accountability. You frequently seek reassurance or validation from other people instead of giving it to yourself, or you tend to repeat very toxic patterns, behavior patterns, or patterns in relationship. Despite maybe being aware of them, you still tend to repeat them. So these are some basic signs of on what level your mental age actually is. And obviously, it connects to the subjective age as well, because it makes you realize how old you feel. But, we will get to that. And also both of these things, because I feel like by the definitions, it sounds like having higher mental age is good and having lower mental age is bad, but it both comes with good things and bad things. But again, we will get to that in the subjective age, because it's just less personal. So I think we are both really good examples of different subjective ages. So we will get into that more in a conversation, but I just really wanted to sort of point it out so we know what we are talking about. So this was mental age, and now we'll be talking about subjective age, which is not that psychological. It's just how every person feels. So to give also a bit more of a personal example, I will make Nick my lab rat here for a moment, which is something I love to do. When you were talking earlier about how some of the topics are becoming me telling you what's wrong with you, I think that should be a series, or like that should be the name of the podcast. What's wrong with Nick? I think that's very catchy. But here, I won't tell you what's wrong with you. I will actually tell you what's very right with you. Because when I started doing this research and, sort of putting my notes for this episode together, I am very aware, and I think that we all are, that you definitely don't feel your age. And just a fact. And when I was reading the signs of like lower mental age, I was like, doesn't really fit. I mean, sometimes, but you are a very responsible adult. And I was like, that's not really the case. I mean, you are doing it to yourself, okay? I'm trying to be nice to you for once, and you are just rolling your eyes at me. Your issue. Okay, that was very childish, mind you.
No, I'm just not sure. You said very responsible adult. I'm not entirely certain that's true, but we'll go with that.
Yeah, well, that's how I see you. I mean, it didn't match what you have. Like, you just feel younger, but like in the good way. And that was when I found the concept of subjective age, which actually, like feeling young while being also, a responsible, experienced adult and handling all of the adult things perfectly and being, with wise with experience, if I say it that way, but also feeling young while doing all of that, it's actually connected to a high psychological flexibility, which I think is a really, really good thing. And we will have some examples later. But I mean, that's what you have. And I think it's great. I think in this case, feeling younger the way you do is much better than feeling older in the way I do, to be fair.
At some point, we're probably going to meet in the middle of our ages.
Like you are getting mentally younger and I'm getting mentally older. I
Hmm.
mean, we already probably met because your subjective age is clearly 27 and mine is 30. So we
True.
already met at some point and
Hmm.
we are over that point now. So too late.
I think possibly one of the keys to feeling younger is, if that's what I feel, and according to the tests I do, is that you have an optimistic outlook. That I think is absolutely essential, because if you're pessimistic, if everything is, it's another day, nothing's going to get better, it's
That's
only
me.
can get worse, I think that's just drags you down mentally. If you approach every day thinking this day is going to be the best day of my life, or at least it's going to have something special about it, something that I will enjoy, that will bring something into my life that I will never forget. And I'm a great believer in making memories. I used to use this technique when I was working in office jobs, maybe having to do some boring writing a report or whatever it would be. But the kind of work where you can just, no brain involved really. I could just then lose myself in a happy memory because it's something I've made. Going on holiday, particularly, is a good time for trying to make those happy memories. But you only make happy memories if you go into each day with optimism. So that's the first thing. The other thing I think is really important is being flexible. And you actually mentioned something about psychological flexibility earlier. So I can't say that I go around thinking I'm psychologically flexible. Hello, I'm being psychologically flexible today. And how are
Well, but
you?
you are.
Yeah, but it's not something that you have to the forefront of your mind. But I do know that I'm flexible and I'm adaptable, and I like change. Don't like things to stay the same too long, which is probably why I've had 24 jobs throughout my life, 25 if you count this podcast, which is, by the way, a lot of work. So I
You're
do count
welcome.
it.
Do I keep you young because I make you work? That's good.
Maybe. Maybe. But yes, just, and I know for many people, change is something they fear. So that is
Mm.
is something that you have to confront, I think, because I think especially with each passing year and certainly with each passing generation, change is much, much more inevitable. I mean, when I grew up, one of my first jobs after leaving university and struggling to find anything to do, and I worked as a van driver in a factory in the nearest town to where I lived and delivering stuff around basically. And it's quite a big factory. And there was in the department where I was based, the guy who ran the department was a lovely old guy called Harold, who was obviously at that time, he was very close to retirement. And he was really, really good to me. And I really liked him. And I really liked listening to him and the stories and actually wisdom that he would give, just because of what he had learned throughout his life. And one of the things that he used to tell me about, was what life was like in that area that I lived in, which was the southwest suburbs of London. And he was saying that, as he was growing up, he'd lived in the area all his life, that if you, for any reason, if you lost your job in the morning, you would go out and you'd get another job by the afternoon. It was that easy. There was so many jobs around. But generally, you didn't really lose your job, and it was quite normal for somebody to leave school and get a job, maybe as he had in a factory, and you would be there for the next 45 years and then you would retire. and you would have that one job. I mean, I simply can't imagine doing that, even if it was a job where you could go in and you'd start working, as the post boy, and then after 40 years, you're the chief executive officer. That might make it acceptable because of the progress and the change in your life. But no, generally, I like change, and I think because now there is no such thing as a job for life. That has long, long gone. So, in order to survive in the jobs market, you need that flexibility. You need the ability to deal with change and to not only accept it, but kind of really welcome it, actually look for it. And so I think these kind of things is sort of, in a way, mental and, you'll like this, psychological gymnastics. I thought I'd just throw that in there because I thought you were beginning to look a little bored at my.
No, oh my goodness. I'm really trying not to because that's just my.
Try not
No,
to look bored.
that came out wrong. You know that I have a resting bitch face. And it shows. And I noticed when I was listening back to the first couple of episodes we have done, I was like, oh my goodness, I look so bored and annoyed when Nick speaks. And I just have to, manage my face a bit so it doesn't look like it. But clearly I'm not doing a good job with that. I'm sorry.
I think that
you know me, I don't mean it.
I think that term you just used actually should become a recognized psychological term, and it could then be abbreviated to RBF. Well, yeah, she suffers from RBF. RBF? What's that? Resting bitch face.
I mean, you are joking about it, but there are, it's not psychological, but there are different types of resting faces. So you are not that wrong, to be fair. But the fact that I have resting bitch face, yeah, we know.
I have, I think, resting miserable face because I always used to be the guy. No, me.
Yeah, you do.
I used to be the guy that people would come up to, strangers would come up to me in pubs and stuff and go, cheer up, mate. Might never happen.
Oh.
So typical English. And yeah, there's nothing worse than being told to cheer up when you're trying to look cool.
Yeah, clearly you weren't doing such a great job looking cool. So maybe it just fits you more looking miserable, to be fair. And there's one thing that I don't think you've mentioned, which I also want to get into. And that is that, feeling younger is often associated with better health outcomes, physical health outcomes, which, we will get back to. As you mentioned, higher optimism, more openness to experience, greater cognitive flexibility, lower stress, and so on, which I think is great. And you sort of figure that out on yourself, but the psychology behind it is psychological flexibility, as I already mentioned, which basically is, being able to update your beliefs and adapt to the modern world and stay open-minded in every area of life. Then mindset growing, basically, which is that you believe that you can still learn and you can still change, and it doesn't matter what age you are, which we had a whole episode about this, and that's exactly who you are and what you do. And then being able to form your identity, which basically means that you don't excuse the things you do with your age in the way of like, oh, of course I don't understand this modern trend, I'm too old. Like, of course I'm being this and that. I mean, I'm too old for that, and I'm too old to change, and I'm too old for being different, and blah, 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 which is a terrible excuse, absolutely terrible excuse. So that just perfectly fits you. And, as I was saying at the beginning, I think it's a good thing. I was thinking about how much of personal examples I can get, because I really got into this topic years ago when I was starting seeing different behavior patterns within my family and, people around me. And something I think I can get into, because luckily no one in my family speaks English apart from my sister, who might be listening, but she won't tell anyone. No, it's actually not a bad thing. It's really known in my family. And that is the comparison between my grandpa and my father, who, my father is in his mid-50s and my grandpa is just turning 70. Actually, tomorrow he's turning 70. So, there's like 15 years between them. But when you look at them, you would never tell. When I started high school, my friends thought that my grandpa was my father. and my father was my grandpa, basically on the way they are acting. I mean, neither of them really look like their age, but I think that really goes with the physical health as well. Because when I see my grandpa, he's exactly like that. He's just like so young in his mind. He's a photographer, so he's surrounded by younger people, and he doesn't really, I mean, he turned 70 and he was like, that age just feels unreal. I'm not that. I'm just like, I don't accept that because it just doesn't feel real. And if you look at him, you are like, yeah, man, that man is not 70. And, he's taking no pills. He has no health issues, nothing. He's totally fine. He might have a shot of vodka when he feels sick, but I mean, it works for him. And then you look at my father, who is 55, 54, and he's taking pills and he feels sick all the time and he keeps complaining that everything hurts and he really acts much older than he is, but not in the good way, not in the way that he would have different life experience, but more like in the way where he's exactly the type of person to excuse things. He's like, oh yeah, I don't understand modern technology because I'm old. Or like, I'm being racist because that's what I grew up with and because I'm old. And I'm like, man, you are 55, first of all. Like, this is a terrible excuse. And when I started noticing years ago, I really thought it was just their personalities. But as they are getting older, and as I'm watching it more and more, I see how thinking mentally on certain level and in certain age literally affects their physical health and their appearance as well. You think like, oh yeah, I mean, okay, I feel younger, I feel older, it doesn't really matter. It's about how I feel, how I act, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think that people realize how much it really affects you physically. So that's something I wanted to point out in more of like, a personal experience. And now I really hope it won't get to anyone in my family. Thank you.
But it's an interesting point, and actually you made me think of things in a slightly different way. And there's a sort of chicken and egg question going on here, in that
Yeah.
when you get older, naturally, things start breaking down in your body, and you are more likely to encounter health issues. But if from quite a young age you are open, adaptable, flexible, open-minded, and you have all these attributes that as you're older, if you still have them, which you hopefully should do, that kind of mental attitude is actually guarding against some of the physical ailments that can come when you're older. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you're going to
It's
get
a circle.
a bad disease, you're going to get a bad disease, or is it something that can be affected psychologically? I actually think it can. I mean, my father always used to say to me, once you're over 50, it's just a lottery how you are, and people can get serious illnesses, and, in the worst cases, that illness will kill them, and quite possibly before their time, we would think, because people get struck down by some illness or heart attack or something, and are gone. And you think, well, that was so unnecessary. But maybe our behaviors and our lifestyle from a very young age actually influences how we are in older age. And I honestly believe it does. So I would say to you, if you're listening to this and you are under, say, 35, think about it. Always be open to change, be flexible, be adaptable. The more you keep your mind open, the healthier your body will be. And you mentioned about technology. That's a very sort of typical area which sort of defines a kind of age barrier. You get to the age where I'm not learning this internet stuff or whatever, although respect to all the so-called silver surfers, of which I suppose I am one, really. But, I actually have two websites of my own that I maintain and I built myself completely from scratch. And so I'm actually not quite comfortable with modern technology. I really enjoy it. So I like learning about new stuff. And one of
Yeah.
these days, because normally, when it comes, got the new TV to set up, smart TV. So, well, that's going to be my son's job. That's the typical attitude. Get the boy to do it. And actually, I do the same, but mainly because I'm just too lazy.
That explains a
So
lot.
there is that thing, let's get the young person to do the tech
Yeah.
stuff. And on that basis, I'm still hoping that, one day you're going to fully explain Instagram to me.
You are getting there. You're doing good. You are getting there. And one day you will manage our social media and edit the podcast, which, I mean, now you are editing the podcast. And that's something. But I just think that, I'm sort of like forcing you to expand your knowledge because I'm lazy. So I'm like, I'm not doing everything. Like, we have to compromise. I won't be doing everything. So you are editing the podcast. And soon enough, you will manage our social media
but I've
because
spent
you
my
are doing
whole
so great with Instagram.
I've spent my whole life audio
Yeah, I
editing
know.
because of my time at the BBC. Anyway, should we look at that subjective age test? Because if you're listening to or watching this podcast now, you can do it. I've left the link to this test in the description of this episode of the podcast, wherever you're listening to it or watching it. So just click on the link and it'll take you to the test and you can find out your subjective age. And it actually breaks it down into four different categories. And then it gets an aggregate score and then gives you your overall subjective age. And the four categories are described as your felt age, how old you feel, cognitive age, how old you think, your social age, what you're like out and about, and your physical age, the state your body's in, I suppose, basically. And then from that, they'll
Yeah,
give you a
but
total.
not in the way of like chronological age, but like physical, more
No.
like what you think your abilities are.
What it says is this facet measures your perception of physical vitality and energy. It reflects how physically capable and active you feel in day-to-day life, including your stamina, strength, and general health status. So, yeah, it's not your chronological age; it's how you feel not how you feel physically, basically. So those are the things that it measures, and then from that you will get your subjective age. So go and finish listening to this episode and then go and click on the link and do the test. But before you do, don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe because we love you and we just want you to do that for us. I'd do it for you. These are some of the questions just to give you a taster of the sort of things you're going to have to answer. Basically, you will see there is a line and you need to move a little movable thing on the screen, either to agree the degree to which you agree with the statement or disagree. And then at the end,
it's a scale.
I
think that's the word you are looking for.
Arguably, but my English is terrible. So thank you for helping
me
there.
You're welcome.
So number one, for example, I wake up feeling energized and ready for the world. Da! Agree or disagree? Okay, that's the first one. Another one. I rarely think about how old I am. I just feel ready for life. Another one. I feel most at ease in social settings with people my age or older. Agree or disagree? Or somewhere in the middle. I tend to tire out easily.
Why did you look at me in this way? You gave me such a dirty look. Do I look tired? I mean, I am, but...
I was waiting to try and catch you in a yawn. It would have been perfect timing, but you let me down
I'm
there.
so sorry.
I've trained you so well not to yawn on camera. Another one. My problem solving relies on the wisdom I've gained over the years. Yeah. Last one now. I can be physically active and strain myself without the need for long periods of recovery. So that's clearly kind of measuring your physical state, physical age. So
I'm honestly surprised that, like, based on the physical age questions, that it didn't give me being like 110, because I think that would be accurate. But otherwise the test is very accurate, and it's really interesting to see it in like different areas because, that's sort of what I was thinking. I was like, okay, yeah, I know that I'm older than my chronological age. I mean, I can tell, I get it from, people around me and so on and so on. But actually seeing the numbers in different areas was, I don't even know how to describe it, maybe quite eye-opening, maybe quite identity losing. It was interesting, but it was also weird.
Anyway, I'd recommend doing the test. It's fun and it can be illuminating, and you might enjoy the answers. You might not. You might
You
not,
might
especially
not.
if you turn out being older than you are. What's that like?
It's That's actually a really good question because I want my first reaction to be it's terrible. But then on the other hand, I don't think it's a bad thing. It comes with good things and bad things. And the good things are obvious. We mentioned some already. It goes with, being able to know yourself more and work with your emotions and regulate your stress and so on and so on. Like I'm often told that I'm planning ahead like someone much older, like someone who really needs to plan their life and not like a 21-year-old who is just going with the flow. I'm not sure if it's because I'm an anxious person or because I feel older. I really don't know. But, often it really goes with a lot of burdens and with a lot of baggage because sometimes I feel like I'm missing on so much and like I can't really enjoy being 21 because I'm already panicking about my life, which a lot of people my age don't do. But at the same time I was really thinking about it and I don't think I would change it. I think that I'm fine with the way I am. And I was also thinking like, why am I this way? Because, as I was talking about different outside causes that my caused this, I was like, why did I end up being this way when I'm just 21? And part of it, unfortunately, which is not one of the good things. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that because part of it is being the child that was supposed to be the third parent because I have a younger sister and, well, let's say, sometimes things weren't always easy with us growing up. And unfortunately, I end up in that situation when I was taken as the responsible one and I was supposed to be the parent, even though when I was like only 12 years old, which to be fair, 12 years is a kid. But at that age, I was already responsible for her. So I couldn't be a kid. So I think that was one of the reasons. Another reason, which is kind of funny, is that I literally grew up surrounded by my father's friends because my dad, he has so many hobbies. He's a pilot, he's a scuba diver, he's a photographer, and all of that goes with groups of middle-aged men and his friends. And I literally grew up surrounded by them. So, then you are 8 and you are sitting in a pub and you are listening to debates on politics and economy, and it sort of leaves something within you. But at the same time, I'm quite fine with it. I mean, I'm still seeing these people from time to time, and it's just so funny, and I can debate with them. And maybe that's the reason why I'm talking to you, because I'm just used to it. Also, what it taught me, which I'm sure you know as well, I'm so great in arguing with middle-aged men. Again, because I grew up surrounded by these people, they know me and they sort of accept me and respect me. And even though sometimes I'm arguing with them, it's like two adults on the same level are debating on something. But if we go back to, we mentioned it in the last episode, going back to visiting the writers' circle in Brussels, you saw it first-handed and you told me afterwards how, there were people much older than me. And even though I had something to say and my arguments were actually valid, there was no respect towards me because I was a younger girl. So, when people don't know you, they are obviously assuming that, oh my gosh, she's just a young girl. What can she know? And that can get very frustrating because I'm like, I'm trying to get a point across and you judge me not based on what I'm saying, but based on how you see me physically and maybe gender-like, which is so annoying. And I feel like everyone who feels much mentally older than they are ever experienced that and can tell how frustrating it is.
Completely get that. And actually, that's probably a topic, it's a big topic that we maybe revisit in future episodes. The difference between your perception of self, your knowledge of the world, your experience, your ability to express yourself, and how the rest of the world sees you. And that situation you're referring to when we both attended a meeting of the Brussels Writers Circle, an English language collective of people with aspirations to write who meet together and basically read out bits of their writing, and then the other members will comment on it. And yes, there was definitely, I sensed when, and you sensed it very much so, that when you were speaking and offering your opinions, you could see that there was a certain amount of, they were already dismissing them because, what's this pretty young girl? What does she know about writing? Um,
Yeah.
that's
It's
the
just
it's
terrible.
very very much sort of old fashioned Edwardian and before that Victorian era in England, where pretty young girls they're to be looked at, not to speak, and
Oh, yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
we don't educate them. Nothing more
Yeah.
dangerous than a gal who can read and write. Oh,
That
really?
was literally how it felt. Like,
Yeah.
and I also think it was one of the part was I just didn't really make it good for myself because I mentioned I was bilingual and all of these people are English. I feel like bilingual people are judged so much. Like, oh, you don't understand English, it's not your first language. But I'm like, yeah, it's not. I speak 2 languages. That's one more than you do. And you judge me for that. You know what I mean? And
Mm,
that's also what I
mm,
felt. And there was this moment when I was basically shushed at the very beginning when I
mm,
tried to speak.
mm,
And it was just ridiculous. And, you know, I wish I could say that it was the first or last time this will ever happen to me. But, you know, I'm not that naive. So unfortunately it already happened
mm,
and it probably will keep happening. And it's just frustrating. But that sort of ties to the very beginning of this episode when you asked if some of the things are compliments or insults.
mm,
And I feel like being told you are more mature than your age is supposed to be a compliment. And I mean, I grew up thinking it was a compliment. But to be fair, it's so backhanded and it's actually not a compliment at all. Because, you know, when I was a kid and I was hanging out with adults and I was told something like that, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, they don't see me like a kid. Like they see me as their equal and so on, which first of all is not right, clearly, because now I'm an adult and I'm still not treated that way. I feel like if people perceive you that way, they will put more pressure on you with how you have to act and they immediately see you as the responsible one. And you know, I was growing up with around, you know, these people and their families and their children, and I was always the one who had to be responsible for other children
mm.
even though I wasn't the youngest. It was like, I don't know, a group of 5 kids, and they were like, oh no, she is responsible. She can handle it. We can go have a beer or chat by a fire and blah, blah, blah. She will take care of them. And I was like, I'm 12. I'm a kid. I can barely take care of myself. I mean, you know, and obviously at that time I didn't see it. But thinking about it now, I'm like, that's actually a very terrible attitude to have towards a kid. So I definitely don't think it's a compliment.
Fair enough. And the other one that we said at the beginning of the episode was the phrase, is this a compliment or an insult? You look great for your age. So the first bit, you
Another
look
one.
great. Yeah, nice. For your age, massive caveat.
Yes.
Suddenly you turn it, I think that turns it into an insult. And on
That's
that
terrible. But
note,
that's one of the backhanded compliments, which I think is terrible. I mean, to certain age, it's not. If someone tells me that, I'm like, what does that even mean? I'm 21.
yeah,
Of course, I look the way I
yeah.
look, you know. But there's a certain age, and I see my mom struggling with it a lot when someone tells her that, and I'm always like, oh my gosh, how terrible is that?
Hmm.
So, you know, when it comes to chronological age, mental age, objective age, the compliment is not always a compliment.
So on that note, remember, be careful when you're handing out those compliments. And don't forget, talking about handing out stuff, give us a like and subscribe. See you next time.